Alex was a curious boy growing up in a town deeply divided along political lines. His parents were outspoken critics of the Republican Party and Donald Trump, making no effort to hide their disdain for the MAGA movement. Every dinner conversation seemed to devolve into discussions about the wrong direction America was heading, filled with harsh words for Trump and his supporters. Alex, however, found himself confused by the fervent hatred. He had seen images of Trump rallies on TV and noticed the joyous expressions of the attendees. Why were they so happy, and why did his parents hate them so much? These questions began to swirl in his young mind, planting the seeds for what would become his secret mission. It started one evening when Alex watched a segment about an upcoming Trump rally scheduled to take place just an hour away from his town. The announcer spoke of the expected large turnout, the fervor of the MAGA crowd, and the tight security measures in place. Alex's ears perked up. He had heard enough about Trump from his parents to know that meeting him would be impossible under ordinary circumstances. But Alex had a bold idea. What if he could meet Donald Trump and give him a hug? In his innocent mind, such a gesture seemed like the perfect way to bridge the gap between his parents' world and the world of the MAGA supporters he had grown so curious about. Keeping his plan a secret from his parents, Alex decided to write a heartfelt letter to Donald Trump. He described how divided his town had become, and how he believed that a simple hug could remind people to treat each other with kindness. He folded the letter neatly and tucked it into his school bag, determined to find a way to deliver it. As the rally day approached, Alex grew more nervous, but also more resolute. This mission, he believed, was important not just for him, but for everyone who needed to see that kindness still mattered. On the day of the rally, Alex slipped out of his house early in the morning, leaving behind a hastily written note for his parents explaining that he had gone to see something important. He hopped on his bicycle and pedaled furiously toward the event venue. As he got closer, he saw the sea of red hats, the signs that read "Make America Great Again," and the enthusiastic crowd chanting Trump's name. The atmosphere was electric, and Alex felt both intimidated and exhilarated. He tucked his letter into his jacket pocket and made his way toward the stage, hoping to get close enough to hand it to someone who could deliver it to Trump. But security was tight, and Alex's small stature didn't help. Each time he tried to push forward, he was met with a wall of larger adults or a stern look from a security guard. By the time Trump took the stage, Alex was stuck near the back of the crowd, straining on tiptoe to catch a glimpse of the man he had heard so much about. The rally ended with thunderous applause, and Alex, dejected, realized he hadn't even gotten close. As he turned to leave, he resolved to try again. One failed attempt wouldn't stop him. When Alex returned home, his parents were waiting, furious and worried. They had found his note and had been calling everyone they knew to figure out where he was. Their relief at seeing him safe quickly turned to anger when he admitted where he had gone. They accused him of fraternizing with people who stood for everything their family opposed, confiscating the MAGA hat he had bought as a souvenir. Alex, frustrated and hurt, couldn't understand why his parents were so angry. He tried to explain that he simply wanted to understand why people loved Trump so much, but his parents dismissed his curiosity as misguided. Feeling isolated, Alex turned to someone he knew would listen: Mrs. Carter, their elderly neighbor. Mrs. Carter was a proud Republican, and though Alex's parents often made snide comments about her political beliefs, she had always been kind to Alex. When Alex confided in her about his mission, Mrs. Carter was deeply moved. She told Alex that his heart was in the right place and promised to help him. Together, they drafted another letter, this time more polished and addressed formally to the Trump campaign. Mrs. Carter used her connections to ensure the letter would reach someone who could take it seriously. Weeks passed without a response, and Alex began to lose hope. Then one day, Mrs. Carter received a call from a friend in the campaign, inviting Alex to attend a private fundraiser where he might have a chance to meet Trump. Alex was overjoyed, and Mrs. Carter helped him prepare for the event, even lending him a small suit so he would look presentable. On the day of the fundraiser, Alex felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. The event was nothing like the rally. It was formal, with attendees dressed in elegant attire, and champagne being served on silver trays. Alex stuck close to Mrs. Carter, clutching his letter tightly. As the evening went on, Alex spotted Trump in the distance, surrounded by a throng of donors and Secret Service agents. Summoning all his courage, he stepped forward, only to be stopped by a stern-faced agent. Mrs. Carter tried to explain, but the agents were unyielding. Alex watched in disappointment as Trump moved further away, out of reach once again. Though heartbroken, Alex didn't let this failure dampen his spirit. On the ride back home, Mrs. Carter reassured him that persistence was key. She promised to help him find another opportunity, and Alex, though tired, nodded with determination. That night, however, his parents discovered where he had been and were livid. The argument that ensued was one of the worst Alex had ever experienced. His father accused Mrs. Carter of manipulating Alex and threatened to sever ties with her entirely. His mother, in tears, begged Alex to let go of his mission, calling it foolish and dangerous. Alex, torn between his parents' anger and his own determination, retreated to his room, clutching his letter and wondering if he was truly doing the right thing. The next morning, Alex woke up to unexpected news. A local journalist who had attended the fundraiser had seen Alex's attempts to approach Trump and had written an article about it. The piece, titled "The Boy Who Wanted to Hug Trump," quickly gained traction online. Social media erupted with opinions on both sides. Trump supporters hailed Alex as a symbol of innocence and unity, while critics dismissed his actions as naive and misguided. The sudden attention thrust Alex and his family into the public eye, further deepening the divide within their household. Amid the chaos, something extraordinary happened. Donald Trump himself noticed the article and tweeted about Alex, calling him a brave young man with a big heart. Trump invited Alex to attend his next rally, promising to meet him personally. The tweet sent shockwaves through Alex's town, igniting a firestorm of debates on television, online, and even in Alex's school. Some praised Trump's gesture as an example of leadership and compassion, while others saw it as a calculated move to score political points. As the date of the rally approached, Alex found himself at the center of a media circus. Reporters camped outside his house, eager to get a statement from the boy who had captured the nation's attention. Protesters from both sides gathered on his street, their shouting matches escalating daily. Alex's parents, overwhelmed by the chaos, reluctantly agreed to let him attend the rally, hoping the experience would bring closure to his mission. Mrs. Carter, meanwhile, stepped in to guide Alex through the storm, reminding him to stay focused on his goal. The rally day arrived and Alex, wearing a fresh suit and holding his now slightly crumpled letter, was escorted to the venue by Mrs. Carter. The atmosphere was even more electrifying than the first rally he had attended, with thousands of people chanting and waving flags. This time, however, Alex wasn't in the crowd. He was taken backstage, where he waited nervously for his turn to meet Trump. The anticipation was almost unbearable, and Alex clutched his letter tightly, rehearsing what he wanted to say. When the moment finally came, Alex was led into a room where Donald Trump stood surrounded by aides and security. Trump turned and smiled as Alex entered, extending his hand. Alex, trembling but determined, handed Trump the letter and said, "Mr. Trump, I just want to give you a hug." For a moment, the room fell silent. Then, with a warm smile, Trump opened his arms and embraced Alex. Cameras flashed as the two shared a heartfelt hug, a moment that would soon become one of the most iconic images of Trump's presidency. The hug was brief but powerful. Alex felt a surge of emotion as he held on to Trump, believing for a fleeting moment that this simple act could indeed bridge the divide he had witnessed all his life. Trump, touched by the boy's sincerity, thanked Alex for his bravery and praised his mission in front of the cameras. "This young man," Trump said, his hand resting on Alex's shoulder, "is proof that America is still a country of hope and unity, no matter how divided it may seem." The crowd erupted into cheers, and Alex felt a wave of pride and relief wash over him. The images and videos of the hug spread like wildfire, dominating news cycles for days. Trump supporters celebrated the moment as a testament to their movement's inclusivity and strength, while critics scrambled to analyze its impact. Some dismissed it as a political stunt, but others couldn't deny the genuine emotion in Alex's gesture. The hashtag Hug for Unity began trending on social media, sparking discussions about the power of kindness in politics. Alex's face was everywhere, and his story resonated with millions. Back home, however, things were far from settled. Alex's parents, while proud of his courage, remained deeply uncomfortable with the narrative that was forming around him. They felt as though their family had been co-opted into a political spectacle, and their resentment toward Mrs. Carter only grew. "You're letting them use you, Alex," his father said one evening, pacing the living room. "Do you even understand what their policies stand for?" But Alex, emboldened by his experiences, pushed back. "All I wanted was to show people that we don't have to hate each other," he said. "Why is that so wrong?" The town, too, was undergoing its own transformation. Lines that had once divided neighbors began to blur as people on both sides of the political spectrum found common ground in their admiration for Alex's courage. Even some of the harshest critics of the MAGA movement admitted that the boy's actions carried a sincerity that was hard to dismiss. Mrs. Carter became something of a local hero, with many crediting her for guiding Alex through his journey. She, however, remained humble, always redirecting praise back to Alex. But not everyone was ready to embrace the newfound spirit of unity. A vocal minority of activists, both pro and anti-Trump, saw Alex's story as a threat to their deeply entrenched beliefs. Online, Alex faced a barrage of criticism and even threats from extremists on both sides. At school, he became the target of bullying from classmates who accused him of being a sellout or brainwashed. The pressure weighed heavily on Alex, but he refused to back down. "If we stop trying to understand each other, then we've already lost," he told Mrs. Carter one afternoon, his resolve as strong as ever. Alex's story continued to gain momentum, culminating in an invitation to speak at the Republican National Convention. The idea was met with resistance from his parents, who feared the political ramifications, but Alex stood firm. "This isn't about politics," he told them. "It's about showing people that kindness can change the world." Reluctantly, they agreed to let him go, knowing they couldn't hold him back from something he believed in so deeply. At the convention, Alex took the stage to thunderous applause. Dressed in a simple suit and holding his now famous letter, he spoke with a clarity and passion that belied his young age. "I'm just a kid," he began, his voice steady. "I don't know much about politics, but I know what it feels like to hate someone without understanding them. And I know that's not the America I want to grow up in." His speech, filled with stories of his journey and calls for empathy, left the audience in tears. Even some of the most hardened critics in attendance found themselves moved. The moment was a turning point, not just for Alex but for the nation. His story inspired countless acts of kindness and understanding, sparking a grassroots movement dedicated to bridging divides. Back in his hometown, the once hostile atmosphere began to soften. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years started to reach out to one another, and local leaders organized community events aimed at fostering dialogue. For Alex's family, the journey brought its own challenges, but ultimately led to growth. While his parents didn't fully embrace the MAGA movement, they began to see Mrs. Carter and her values in a new light. Their relationship with Alex deepened as they learned to respect his convictions, even when they didn't agree with them. Alex's mission had started as a simple desire to give a hug, but it ended as a powerful reminder of what humanity could achieve when driven by love instead of hate. As he stood in his backyard one evening, looking up at the stars, Alex felt a sense of peace. His journey wasn't over, but he knew he had made a difference.